Okay. Hey, everybody. Natalie Cutler Welsh here. And today I'm going to be doing my Go To Girl podcast using Blab. So, last week, episode 97, I actually did a podcast all about how to use Periscope and Blab to grow your business. And in fact, I kind of talked about the difference between the two because I think people, some people just don't realize the differences, and there are quite a few. But today we're going to be talking about do's and don'ts for marketing and branding. And so I've asked the lovely Smita Singh to join me today. So we are doing this live on Blab. If you're listening to the podcast, definitely go over and check the show notes and you can watch the replay. You can see us in action. And that will be gotogirlsocialmedia.com/98, episode 98. So here we go. Hi, Smita. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Natalie. Thank you so much. I'm finally, thanks to you, not a Blab virgin anymore.
Well, welcome to Blab. That's very exciting. So, what we're going to do is, if people come in and join us, we'll just kind of mention them, but we'll really just carry on with the topic and then take some questions at the end because we can open up the seat. I've got the controls. I can click open seat.
You go,
So, hey, I thought
girl.
it would be great if you could start off by just giving people a little bit of a background. I know that you and I met because you interviewed me on your podcast, Womanpreneur podcast, Strategies for Success. But if you could just paint a picture for us about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I am actually a serial entrepreneur. I really have done so many things. I used to own a retail store. I used to own a service-based business. So I've done a lot of small business. I've worked in the corporate world, thankfully not anymore. So I've been doing this for the past 10 years, and eventually I decided to jump into the online world. And really, what I do now is a lot of marketing and branding. I work with a lot of authors and companies, in fact, I'm working with, and small businesses. And my main thing is that, and having owned small businesses, I think the biggest mistake that we all do as a small business or anything, because now even a single individual and entrepreneur is a personal brand. So I think all of us, the biggest mistake that we do is to not think out our strategy. So really that's my focus. I love brainstorming, mind maps, all of that stuff. So I work with my clients and I help them put a very strategic, comprehensive strategy in place that really takes them through. So that's
I
what I
love
do
that.
right now.
I'm a big mind mapper too. Do you actually map it out on mind map and then go to calendar? Because if you see behind me, I've got my big wall planner here,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big mind mapper as well. And quite often I'll do some mind maps and then map it out. How do you
Yes,
do it?
that's exactly what I do. I'm a very visual, like a paper person, paper and pen or a pencil. I'm not a when I'm thinking and I'm brainstorming and I'm mind mapping, I need it in front of me. So I use generally an easel paper, the one that kids use, what they put it on. So I have two kids and I have easel paper everywhere. So I use easel paper and I love it because it's like a running paper. So I just keep going on and on, and I'll use different colored pens and all that stuff. So it's just literally every idea that I have, I just put it on paper. And then eventually I'll go and, figure out where it goes and all of that stuff. But the goal is to really just throw everything on that paper and then figure out, there's that method to the my madness kind of. So and then figure out, where does it go and what the timelines are and all of that.
And do you tend to go like for the full year, or are you more of a quarterly planner?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that because I am like a totally new, I have a new system now and I'm really proud of it. So, I used to be a very, oh my gosh, it's New Year and let me get my new stuff out and let me like do all of this. And I'm telling you, it never worked, but I always did it. Now, for the past, I would say 6 months, I started doing. If you've read, or I would definitely send you a link to it if you want, the 12-week year.
Mhm.
I love that book. That has totally changed the way I think, and it's amazing. So basically, the whole premise of the book is that when you're close to, especially small business, right? Retail, when I did it, our last quarter was the craziest quarter
Mm.
because we're like, trying to get everything in, trying to get all of that stuff. So even as our goals, we put our goals together in January and then we're like, yeah, summer's going to come. I have time. And then it's August and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, now I better get to it. So by October, you're just in full gear and you're like, oh my gosh, I only have like 2.5 months. Let me like get on it. So that's the premise of it. And what it says is that split your years into 12-week
Hmm.
year, right? 12-week goals. And that's what I've been doing. And I love it because those 12 weeks, I just literally have my head down and I'm working and I have a plan and I'm working towards something. And then after that, I can take 2 days off. I can take like a week off because I know that it's working. The other thing that I think is a really good point in that book, which really hit hard, is you know how sometimes you'll work, especially marketing plans, right? You set them out and then you'll spend six 6 months working and implementing a marketing plan. If it doesn't work out and you're not seeing a return, you'll see it in 6 months. That's a long time. So you've literally wasted all of that time. Versus if you do the 12-week year, it's like 12 weeks and you'll figure out, okay, this plan is not working. Now let me try something else. So it really gives you that really, that let's do this fast and implement it. And yeah, I love that. So
That's
my
cool.
max is
That's
12 weeks.
that's great because I've got a group of clients I'm working with really tightly at the moment, and I was just thinking we're going into November. I need to ask them to do their goal, like their monthly goal,
Hmm.
and then I was thinking, should I also ask them for a 1 year goal, like within the next year, or should it be this next 6 months? And I was going to
Yeah,
go, for this month, and then for 6 months time. But even
yeah,
that is pretty far out. Like you want to have a vision, but you want to
exactly.
break it down quarterly is good.
Exactly. And also the other thing that I've seen is that when it's so far out, especially for us that are, on the go and we're doing this thing as it's going, there are so many things that change, right? Like even maybe 8 months ago, I wasn't expecting the kind of clients that I'm working with right now. Like I'm working with a huge company at this moment. And 8 months ago, I didn't know that was going to happen. And if I had stuck to my yearly goals, it would have been the hardest thing. So I think having that 12-week year is gives you so much flexibility to be on point with your business at the moment.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got I know we're getting into the good stuff. We've
Yeah.
got that, you're a podcaster, a mother of two?
Yes, two
Mother of
boys.
two, mother of two boys.
Yes.
And working in business. So who do you mainly work with then? You said it's changed transitioned quite a lot in the last wee while. Who do you work with at the moment? How would you describe them?
Sure. So at the moment, I actually have a very varied clientele. So I work with authors, and somehow they found me on my podcast, and it just happened that So for authors, I put their PR and marketing plans together, and currently I'm working on a huge project with a client. So they're a really big company in Houston. They're new, so helping them out with their marketing plans. Integrated marketing strategic plans. So because
Mhm.
they're going to use everything pretty much. So yeah, so it's fun. So I get to do the small business and I get to do, the big companies and the bigger picture and a lot of community outreach. So it's fun.
I love that. You said it's varied, but it is niche because you said
Yes.
you're authors, not a wide range. So that brings us to tips. So I'd love to dive into some do's and don'ts. Hey, by the way, hello, D. We've got Deet Way and we've got David who have joined us. Thanks, guys. We're just doing kind of a podcast style interview, and then we're going to break out into some questions at the end. So let's start with just some do's and don'ts along the lines of either avatar, ideal client, niche, anything along those lines.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the biggest do or the biggest thing that a lot of people ought to do and not do it is really to figure out who their clientele is, who their audience is. And I've been there, done that. A lot of times we just throw stuff out there and hope that something sticks. And that's the worst kind of marketing. So really to know who your audience is, the first basic foundation of any marketing plans. And the best way to figure that out, and I think a lot of times when clients come to me, they are scared to niche down,
Mm.
because they're worried that they're not gonna, they want, it's the wide, this thing, right? I want to be able to reach out so many people because I can help them. And then maybe when I'm niching down, I am, turning away all of these clients when it's the opposite. I think when we figure out our ideal client and we really focus on them, there are so many others that will really see the results and come to you, because
Mm.
eventually your expertise is something that, at least most of them, right, is something that can be used for a lot of different, aspects in different fields. So definitely, I think the first main do would be to get your ideal client pat down. I mean, that's the number one thing. And it's totally fine to have different kinds of ideal clients and then have different kinds of marketing plans for each,
Yeah.
because you can't expect, say you have somebody in the health field and you're working with, like I have a client who's in the mental health field, and we're trying to do a branding plan for her. Now, what I give to her would be something completely, or the way she found me is a completely different way of how an author would find me. So I think it's totally okay to have different target audiences. It's totally fine. You can have more than one, and then you build your marketing plan based on that. So number one, do.
No, I love it. I totally agree. I think a lot of people start out and either they come from that place of generosity where they just want to like help everybody and and their ideal client is too broad, or they come from that place of lack or fear and they think, well, I don't want to miss out on anybody and so I'll just help
Yes.
whoever. And
Yes.
then and then it just doesn't have direction and it doesn't have like that passion when they're trying to um trying to attract the right person.
And I think
Exactly. All
that's
right.
the and I think that's the biggest mistake that people do when they're just starting out.
Mm.
And I'll give you an example of the other side, right? I know people who are so niched, they've gone down so much that when they are figuring out their marketing plan and their branding plan, they know exactly who to focus. So those particular companies now are coming to them and saying, "Hey, can you help me out?" Right? It's because of that niche audience that they're getting.
That's awesome. Okay, so what about what do you have a next do that you want to go to, or do you want
Yes,
to share a
yes,
don't?
yes. Let's do, because I'm gonna do both do's and don'ts. So
Okay.
let's do a do. So the second do is, please do not copy other people's marketing plans. It is so it's so easy for me to say, for example, Blab, right? Or Periscope or whatever came, whatever the next social tool is going to be. It is so easy to say, oh my gosh, everybody's on Blab. Let me get on Blab. But maybe your audience does not hang out on Blab, right? Maybe your audience hangs out on LinkedIn. So it is so important to really, and again, it drives back to knowing your audience, is when you know your audience, figure out where they're hanging out. Because if you don't know that, you're going to focus all of your attention, all of your, resources, your time, precious, the most precious thing, time, on a wrong platform. So the first or the second do and don't copy other people,
Hmm.
and do look out and find out and research where your audience is hanging out so you can focus at the right place.
I completely agree, and I love that that ties so nicely into you said don't copy other people's marketing plans, and one of the tips I always give is be true to you. Meaning, don't try
Exactly.
to copy what someone else is doing, not just in their marketing, but in their personality and their style and the way that they're speaking, because you can tell if it's not there's it just doesn't fit and it feels wrong.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing, I think is, when be true is also be transparent, right? I
Mm.
think that a lot of times people tend to, they want to be something, or they want to be somewhere and they want that particular thing. So they'll put that out as being their expertise. And unfortunately, it's just be true to yourself, be authentic, be transparent. If it's something that you don't know about, and it's totally okay, let your client know that, you know what, maybe I'm not sure about it, but let me go find an expert. So I think that's the more transparent, the more authentic you are, the more people would be willing to give you the chance and be able to, to say, okay, you know what, let me at least get the expertise that you have. So, so it's always, it's very important, I think, to be very transparent.
And I think the other part of that too, when you said that, people are thinking, oh, Blab's really hot right now, I think I'll do Blab. And as I said on my podcast, when I talked about Periscope and Blab, I said, stay with your strengths. Like if the idea of showing your face to a bunch of people you don't know around the world live doesn't appeal to you, then just like don't do it. So don't go live on Periscope. Don't join a seat in Blab. But you can get a lot of value out of both of those platforms just by being part of it, by commenting and engaging. So for example, we've got Confluent Forms on the side, making some lovely comments about branding and your brand voice and your brand messaging. And I think, so if people are thinking, oh, I need to blog, but they actually hate writing, it's just not going to work.
Right, exactly, exactly. I agree. I mean, I think, and that's what really brings down a lot of people, because especially I've seen recently, you're trying to get on it, but then you're wasting so much time and resources. So really, just do what makes you comfortable, because that's going to translate into what your audience is looking at. So if, standing up on stage and talking is not making you comfortable, don't do it, right? Versus if it's more of a one-on-one, then do that. So definitely, I think be authentic.
Yeah, nice. All right. Do you have another one for us?
Yes. How about the biggest one? Your marketing is not about you. Seriously, I think that's the one thing that, when we're putting our marketing messaging out there, a lot of things about this is what we do, this is how great we are, this is what, these are my services, this is this. Unfortunately, what you're doing is not about you. It's about your client. It's about your customers. It's about how you are able to help them and or what their needs are. So I think it is so important when you're putting your marketing message out to really understand the needs of your clients and how you can help them fulfill that. So I think too, the way you put your messaging together is really important. And a lot of times I see people talk more about, I can do this and I can do this for you and I can get you 10,000 followers. Unfortunately, it's not what you can do. It's what I want you to do, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is to make sure that you understand that your whole marketing plan is based on what your customer's needs are.
That's so interesting. You said it's not all about you, and then I'm sitting here, and behind me is a big poster pointing to me. But if you could do it, a quick review on my banner, it actually says making social media and networking easy, fun, and fabulous. Is that backwards or is it the right way for you?
No, I see it. I just
Okay.
couldn't see the top.
Because one of the things I was going to mention was taglines. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, what do you think of that?
No, I like it, and I'll tell you why. Because it's telling, or actually, if you can go down, it says making social media easy, fun, and fabulous. But that's what's doing for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm your client,
Mm-hmm.
you're telling me, hey, I'm going to make it easy for you, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be fabulous. So it's
Yeah.
all about me, not about
Okay.
you. So that's awesome. So I like it. And I think that's what, even in B2B, because when I work with a lot of, business to business clients, that's one of the things that they kind of not, they don't really, or they do get it, I guess, but it's harder for me to explain it to them, because a lot of times they're talking about, okay, you know what, I have these services and this is what's going to help my clients. That's great. But again, it's that mindset shift to say that, okay, if I'm a business to business client and what are they looking for, and let's get them on the table and figure that out. So really, I think a lot of that is to do also with research, right? Because when you're researching your clients, it's important to figure out what their pain points are. So
Mm.
that way you're able to build that into your messaging.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned pain points as well. I've got this great activity that Lindsay Wilson does with her clients, and she gets them to ask their clients. So ask your happy customers or happy clients for 3 adjectives that describe working with you, or to 3 adjectives. Not 3 adjectives to describe you, because we don't want them. Because for me, they'd be like energetic, fun, funny, things like that. But it's like I actually want them to describe the experience of working with me or the results that they got from working with me with
Nice.
me. And then you collect all that. So let's say you go and ask 10 people, collect all that. You go and look at what are the most common words that keep
Mm-hmm,
reoccurring. And
mm-hmm.
then you feed those words back to your ideal clients in your copy, like in your emails and in your
Exactly.
Facebook posts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great way to do that. And you know, that's one of the things is when you have that client base, make sure you send them I hate to say surveys, but you know, feedback. Because at least that way, and then when you're putting your questions out, you know, exactly like you said, right? How did you enjoy working with us and why? And all of that stuff. And that's what you collect and you know, you put together. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not very good at doing the big survey, which I should do because I know lots of people do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I tend to do more of a mini survey. I've got a private Facebook group, a community of women entrepreneurs. There's about 1,500 women in there. So now and then I'll go in, and in private Facebook groups, you know how you can create a poll,
Mm-hmm.
which you
Mm-hmm.
can't really do on your business page. So
Yes.
that's quite handy. But usually it's something like, what topic do you want me to do in my next podcast, or what online training would you like in November?
Yes,
It's more like that.
yes, exactly. And that's great because you're getting firsthand, you know, feedback. So that's awesome. And you're getting your audience involved.
Hmm.
So that's the best thing because now they're more invested in you emotionally because now they've answered something. So they're looking forward to it. So absolutely.
All right. So you touched on pain, and then I kind of turned it around when I talked about the three word activity. But can you elaborate more on that whole concept of knowing your ideal client's pain point?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the one thing that I work on a lot when I'm, especially in the research phase, is to really drill deep into what is it that they're, you know, what their pain points are, or what is it that they're looking for. And I think a lot of times, um, it's it's what we're expecting them to do or say is, oh, I don't like to, or you know, I this was hard for me, or blab, right? So say for example, let's talk about blab. Maybe blab is hard for me to navigate, right? It's sometimes the pain points are not as cut and dry as they're out there, right? There some people might not say, oh, this is something that I don't like. Sometimes you really have to go in and read the message to understand what they're trying to say.
Mm.
Especially, there are a lot of times on social media where you'll see, you know, rants or people are talking about something that they don't like. It's very important to really understand and look at the message behind the words and figure out what is it that they really are not understanding or liking or you know saying that this is hurting, right? So I think that's super important to really understand the messaging, and also to go on different platforms. So for example, if you are, you know, trying to figure out maybe what are the pain points that a new mom is facing, right? So instead of just going on one platform, go to different platforms. Maybe, you know, Facebook or groups, or go to, you know, physical meetups that people are going or having. I think it is important to collect that whole data from different, you know, different areas, because that's the only way when you sit down and put it together, you're able to get a comprehensive view of those pain points versus just one, you know, set of people, maybe those that hang out on Facebook.
Mm. That's right. Because one would, straight away, someone's like, "Oh, new moms are really tired." But I would say new moms, they have a lack of identity
Yes,
issues.
yes,
Change
a
like
ton,
what's their
right?
newfound role, and I would go on about that. Whereas other people would be like, "Oh, it's all about exhaustion and sleep."
Exactly, exactly. So I think it's super important to really just drill down into it. And I think that's the one of the main, especially, you know, when I work with companies, it's so important to really spend that time doing the research because that's the only way you can plan it out right. If you don't do the research, you don't spend the time finding out the pain points, you don't spend the time really understanding your customers, you know, a lot of your plan could be just half, you know, baked.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I love the idea of looking on the different platforms. Not all the
Yes,
platforms, but like you said before, the 2 to 3 platforms where your people are actually hanging out. Don't just focus
exactly.
on one, particularly when you're doing the research. You need to look at it more broadly. So can we just talk a little bit about taglines and things?
Yes.
So, we talked about mine before, but do you have any do's and don'ts for people around headlines or taglines?
Yes. So, one of the things that a lot of people would ask me is how do I find out, or how do I come up with a tagline, right? That's the number one question. I think that there's one particular thing that I tell everybody is when they're starting their business is to figure out the stories in their business, right? So, and when I mean stories, I don't mean like makeup stories. I mean your experiences that translate into a story. So a lot of times when I sit and work with them, we we write down and we actually brainstorm three very specific stories, right? So number one is your customer story. So, for example, if you already have had a customer, figure out, the whole process and what was it like before they started working with you?
Mm.
What was it like while they're working with you? And what is a transformation that happened? So figure out a customer story, and you could do multiple if you wish, but at least one customer story. Figure out your passion story, right? Why did you start this business? What was the reasoning behind it? What was the passion behind it? And the third is your business story. So you may have the passion. Why did you start your business? Why did you start this store, this particular business? What is it that you want to get out of it? What is it that what is it that you want to do eventually? What is your vision? So once you have those in place, your three big stories, you're able to really drill down to the most important aspects of what is it that you want to do, right? And once you do that and you have your customer pain points, you've done your research, I think the best thing to do is pick what makes the most sense to you. So, like, for example, you said easy, fun, and fabulous. So, as a customer, it's probably when I'm doing social media, and especially if I'm a small business owner and I have like 110 things to do, social media is the last thing that I'm looking at, because right now I'm looking at invoices, or I'm looking at employees, and I'm looking at at product that's sitting here, and I don't want to deal with social media. So you're making it easy, fun, and fabulous for me. So maybe I can come out, have a drink, and do work on my social media. So it's really I think the way to put your taglines together is not just to say, oh, this is the name of my company and this is what I'm going to do and this is my tagline. I think that's the don't way of doing it. I think you should go the other way around, is to do your research, find your pain points, and then find the words that really describe what you want to do and fit it with your pain point or customers' pain points.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see a few people around doing the three word thing. So we've got a business here in New Zealand called Motivate Me NZ, and
Mm-hmm.
she uses live love, laugh, or live, love, learn, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I've got a client at the moment, Claire from Dom's Kitchen. She's really quite big on, or she's busy on Periscope. And it's all about paleo food. And so
Mm-hmm.
we came up with, I can't remember the middle one actually. It's like real food, real something, and then real easy. So, those are the three words that go around her logo.
Yes, yes, that's nice.
But
So
we
yeah,
played around with
the
that.
rule of threes.
Right.
Awesome.
Um, so what I've got one I'm going to add in, but I want to step on your toes.
Go
Do
for
you have
it.
another one? Well, one of the ones that I talk about is I guess is you just kind of reminded me with the rule of thirds. I use a phrase called give give get.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that on social media as well as in life as a business owner, make sure you're doing a combination of these things. Make sure that you're giving, being
Mm-hmm.
helpful and friendly on Facebook, for example, and being generous, giving some more. So give them links to relevant blogs or YouTube video clips or links to podcasts and that kind of thing. And ask them questions. So that's the give, lots of giving,
Yes,
lots of helpful, but also make sure you get something back in return, because I see some
exactly.
clients and I scroll through their Facebook feed and I'm like, you're doing quotes, you're doing conversation, you're being funny, you're being helpful, but you're being entertaining and inspirational, educational, but you're never asking for the sale. Like you're never
Right.
inviting them to buy your product or to work with you. And then on the flip side, I get other people that, and this is the don't of it, is they are over broadcasting. So, they're just doing too much. Buy this, look at that, but they're not generating the vibe of communication. It's really just
Yes.
broadcasting, just telling, too much telling.
Yes.
What do your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. And I think it's in every platform because recently I read somewhere that even on LinkedIn, um, the best interaction you get is when you're giving 80% and 20% is when you're asking. So I
Mhm.
think it's, and even when you said give, give, get, I just remembered jab, jab, jab,
Oh,
right hook, right?
yeah.
Gary Vee's book. And that's, I think it's now become very innate with a lot of seasoned, I think, marketers out there. Is it's today you have to give, you have to let people know what you're all about, and in that there's no, and I think that actually brings me to another point is where people always say, what is the difference between free content and paid content, right? If you're giving so much, what's the difference? And I think that as an entrepreneur, I think as a new entrepreneur, a lot of people don't get it. And really to understand that difference between to understand the difference between this is my first time in Blab, so I'm like looking at the comments. I'm like, wait, I'm getting distracted now.
I know we're going to come back to you about the
I
Pareto
know.
principle.
But I was saying, so it's very important to give, and I think that's the only way people really understand your authenticity and your expertise is when you really understand. And the whole paid content and being able to work one on one with customers. In fact, that's what somebody just asked me recently. She said, "Why should I do all these blogs when I really want people to come and pay for my services?" I'm like, it's so important for them to get to know you, to know that this is what you're doing, this is where your expertise is, because eventually everybody needs help. Everybody thinks that they can bootstrap and do it, but it is always the case, because if you want to get from point A to point B in a shorter amount of time, you want to get the expertise. You want to get to you want to do get a new client. For that, you want to go ahead and get the expertise, learn all of that stuff, and to do all of that, you do need to go out and get give, and then so that you can go and get clients, do the paid stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It is definitely a balance of like, to use my example of Claire earlier with the paleo example. She's just been doing like over giving, like give, and then when she finally launched a website, she gave all the recipes for free, and I was kind of like, hang on, can't we have a membership area for some of these golden recipes? So we're moving towards her starting. She's just started an online membership for people who will pay to get her gold, all about how to live more healthy and a paleo lifestyle. But it is that balance. Some people just
Yes.
are over giving and they never ask people to work with them, and other people do the opposite.
Yes. And that's where the brand crush comes into place, right? Because you, as a personal brand, if you're able to emotionally connect with your audience, as long as you're authentic and you know what you're doing, eventually they are going to, whatever, no matter what new thing you put out there, they're going to come get it, because you know what, they believe in you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the whole branding, and to be able to, your authentic self is where it comes into play, because you may be giving away free stuff, but eventually when they love you and they trust you, no matter what you do, they'll come get it.
Yeah. So I know, did you want to respond to Confluent Form's
Yes.
question about,
Let me see. Where was the question?
he said not the
No
oh,
to
maybe we'll let him in. Maybe we'll let him in to
Yes.
talk to us at the
Let's do
end.
that.
That sounds good. Okay, how about we'll do one or two more do's and don'ts, and then we'll
Yes.
wrap things up. And I also wanted to ask you about the Huffington Post article, so don't let me
Sure.
forget.
No worries. So how about a do? How about have a content calendar? That is so important. I at one point had so much confidence in myself to say that, oh, you know what? I don't need a content calendar. I can figure out what I'm doing, and I can just sit down and write a blog post today and it's done. And I think that was the worst mistake that I did early on. It is so important to have a solid content calendar, because you can integrate it not only with your marketing, but also with your services that you're providing. So say, for example, I am launching a course in June of next year. And for me to go up to up to the launch of my course, I want to be able to cascade my marketing up to it, my blog posts that are related to it. So I think it's so important to have a very thought out content calendar that merges with your launches that you're doing, because eventually, or maybe a new product that you're coming out with, or maybe something, whatever your plan is for the next year, or next, I say year because 2016 is coming up, but
Yeah.
for the next few months. And it's great to integrate it with your marketing plan.
Did you use the term cascade your marketing?
I did.
Nice. I'm gonna hashtag
Yes.
that. That's cool. That's great. But I mean, that's perfect because,
Yes.
yeah, you have to, I mean, some people do just kind of make it up as they go along.
I
Other
did too.
people, I mean, I kind of do a bit of both actually, and
Yeah.
depends on what's going on. But some people I know, I do have clients who map it out 2 weeks in advance and literally like they'll schedule. Whereas I definitely, a lot of my stuff is more real time.
Hmm.
But there is a plan as to what I'm doing when,
Right,
usually,
right,
not all the time.
right. No, I think it is so important because it really, when you have a plan, it also gives you, time to really think it out. Because when you're just making stuff up on the fly, maybe something happens and you're not able to do it, so you're missing that deadline, right? So I think yes, it's great to have on the fly stuff like tweets, right? Go ahead and do on the fly tweets, but it's important to maybe think out your tweets in advance, and make sure that they're reflecting what you're doing in your marketing plan. If they're completely disconnected, it's you're just wasting time.
Strong words. And we've actually got some very strong words in the comment box, which is exciting. We're going to bring him in live in a minute. He's talking about Confluent Forms, is talking about you shouldn't need a ratio of that content. Your content should all be of value to your audience. Sorry, he said you shouldn't need, a ratio.
Very true.
Your audience should be based on your shares. They should know what you do and know what you do well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think engagement is super important. You're right. Confluence
And
forums.
then he's
I
saying if
like
you need to
that.
ration your sales messages, you're not doing a good enough job with your message branding. Okay, we're going to bring him in live in a second. But before we do, I wanted to ask you about you. Congratulations for getting your article in the Huffington Post.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your key message with that
Yes,
was?
yes, absolutely. I think I really was very inspired to write that article because a lot of people reach out to me and they say that they have a passion to do something. And it's great. I very much support passion, but I think that just having passion and not having a plan to turn that passion into a business is something that is detrimental to a lot of people, because they will spend, for example, if you're passionate about, and I give an example in the article about drums, or about playing drums, or whatever it is, right? Whatever may be one thing that you're passionate about, and now you say, okay, I want to quit my job and now I want to do something that I'm really passionate about and turn it into a business. It's so easy to jump into it and say, I'll figure this one out, versus really thinking it out, doing your research and figuring it out if people are really in need of your service, right? And I gave an example of one of my clients, and she is in a particular field where she was figuring out what niche to go into. And we did all our research and everything, and there were two that we decided on. Now, one was very this was in the mental health field, and one was very out there, and it's very people are really interested in it, and people actually seeked her out. She had a lot of experience, and people actually seeked her out for it. Versus the other one, the other niche was where she was like, this is what I love to do. Now, the difference between those two were, one has clients, one has customers that are needing you, whereas the other is just out there, and maybe you can put content out there and wait for people to come find you. So I think really, I said, passion is overrated, and really it's not a prerequisite for success, because you can have a business, you can do what you're doing, and cultivate a passion in it versus going blindly following a passion. I don't mean that you have a passion and you know it's going to work out and you have a great business plan, go for it. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that just to have a passion and feel that you can turn it into a business without doing your research and without really knowing if there are customers out there is what really is harmful.
Yeah. So I love it. You got the three P's, the passion, the plan, and the people,
Yes.
right? The triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
really resonates well with something that I think it was Natalie Sits in the Suitcase Entrepreneur. She's
Mm-hmm.
actually my guest speaker at my networking event coming up. But she talks about how to start a business that's successful, you need to do something that you love, something that you're good at, and then this is the clincher, something that people will pay for, right? So
Exactly.
that's exactly what you were
Exactly.
saying as well.
Absolutely.
Nice. All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Unfortunately, he said he can't come on live because he's
I
only
just saw that.
I know,
Oh, we're gonna miss you. No, but we will connect with you. I
he's
promise.
only listening. Okay. No, that's fine. So, hey, if anyone that is listening has a question, go ahead and ask it, or you can request to join the seat. But in the meantime, Smita, I'm going to ask you, what have you got coming up for the rest of the year or next year? What's in the pipeline for you?
So at this moment, I'm super excited because I am working actually with a very huge company. I am doing their whole marketing strategic plan. And it's a very integrated plan because we're doing community outreach, we're doing alliance partners. So that's what's exciting me right now. I'm working with a couple of authors and they have a few books coming out. So you'll see more of that next year. So yeah, I'm just excited. My plate is full right now. So I'm just enjoying it.
And speaking of plate being full, one of the terms I love to use is hashtag juggling the mother load. So, how do
Yes.
you juggle the mother load of running a business while raising a family?
Whew, isn't that the hardest thing? Especially, I think
That's a whole other
running,
blab altogether, I guess.
exactly. No, but running a business as an online entrepreneur versus like a small business owner, because when I had my business, I used to go right physically to my retail store. And that was a little bit different because I had timings. So I would leave at this time and I would be back
Yeah.
by the time the kids are home. But now I'm just like, oh my goodness, it is hard. I really, I think the one biggest thing I've learned is that as soon as you find time, you sit down and you do what you're supposed to do. Because whatever you're planning out, like chunks of time, things will happen. Your kid will fall sick, and you have to take them to the doctor, or something will happen. So I think the biggest takeaway for me as a mom of two very energetic and active voice is whenever I get the time, whenever I can steal time away, I go ahead and get my work done. But I think the biggest saving grace is planning, because every night I will sit down and plan out my day. It is very important because then I don't have to think. I don't have to spend time thinking about what I'm going to do that day. I already know what's on my list and I just go, one, two, three, done. And if I'm not done, that's totally fine because then I'll take that over. But at least I just have that system. So I do that quite a bit, actually every day. I do it even on a Sunday. I do sit down and plan out my next day. I am not, and this is probably really bad, but I am not on social media much, especially Facebook, because it just sucks away all of my time. And I just, in fact, up until quite recently, all my notifications were off. So I was really bad in responding. But I just feel like when I have a goal, I just want to focus on it, and I don't want anything else to take away from it. So definitely, what I when I tell my clients is this website. It's called Rescue Me, and I can send
Hmm.
you the link. That and the other one is I have a master schedule. So especially when I do my 12-week goals that we talked about in the beginning, I do a master schedule, and I really keep that up with my daily schedule. So I do that. And of course, there's tons that you can use, but I also do the Miracle Morning. I don't know if y'all have
Oh, good
read
on
that book.
you.
Yeah, I try, but my exercise doesn't happen in the mornings; it happens in the evenings. So you know what? You have to make do with whatever you
It's your
get.
miracle day. It's your
Yes,
miracle
that's
day.
right.
That's awesome. So for those people listening, I'm going to be putting all the links that we've mentioned into the show notes, and of course, link right through to Smita's podcast as well as her website. Her podcast is called the Womanpreneur Strategies for Success podcast. But I'll put all of that info in the go2girlsocialmedia.com/98. This is episode 98, or you can just go to my website, type in Smita in the search, and you'll be able to find it. So thank you. You've mentioned some great things. You talked about the 12-week year book. You talked about rescue time. So I'll put that link in. And of course,
Sure.
the miracle morning, which again is like a whole nother blab
Yes,
altogether.
yes.
But that's really cool. I actually try to do it. Well, I'm the same. No, I don't do the complete miracle morning. I probably do.
Yes.
Sometimes I meditate and sometimes I exercise, but I still have to get all of it on the same day.
Yes. It's amazing. I think it just totally changed my whole attitude. And I'll tell you this, I used to be very, I don't want to say, uppity, but I really thought that journaling was for kids. I was like, yeah, I did journaling when I was, when I was a teenager. But I really started doing journaling, and it's been amazing because I just, every day I'll just sit down and write, and just the thoughts that come out. Sometimes you have, and I think as any entrepreneur, you have those highs and lows, and you go through things, and in between clients and with clients or whatever it is, right? And I just writing stuff out and just putting it out there kind of just took the whole negativity around maybe something that was going on. So yeah, I totally am a proponent of journaling now.
And I love that how you differentiate that between the planning, which is planning for your day, which
Yeah.
is not journaling. Journaling
Mhm.
is like thoughts and free flow and reflections and gratitudes and all types of things like that.
Yes,
That's all good
exactly.
stuff. Excellent. So, hey guys, we've got 2 minutes. If anyone wants to pop on for a quick question, we got 2 minutes. So all you need to do is click join, and you can come on in. I think we've got. If anyone wants to ask any questions, otherwise we're going to wrap it up.
No questions.
That's right. What I'll do, I'm going to wrap up the podcast bit. So thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Go-To Girl podcast. I've got obviously 97 other episodes you can listen to as well. So you can check that out on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and the Go-To Girl website.